All right, well, I think we will go ahead and get started. Hopefully you all can hear me okay. Perfect, thank you, Yuqwan. All right, well, welcome to our May Western Idaho chapter meeting. We are so thankful that you all are joining. Looks like more folks are joining, and so welcome tonight. We have a great presentation lined up for you this evening. So without further ado, we'll get through the chapter updates. We'll start with membership. Craig?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Sounds like it. All right, great. So just a few slides here. We are holding steady right above 500 as our membership. So that's good that we've kind of stopped the decline there. And we actually have 5 new members. I don't know if any of them are on tonight, but Patrick, Michelle, Jenny, I don't know, Jared and Eric, they are our new members. So welcome. And let's see, we have a bunch of anniversaries today. There they are. I won't name them all, but 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, and even some 15 years, Brett and Katie. So that's great longevity in the chapter. So congratulations to all of you guys. And we have a couple of three new certifications. They're all CAPMs, which is great. Zach, Tanya, and Cheyenne. Again, I don't know if they're here, but congratulations to them. And so that's people continue to work on and get their certifications. So the members raffle. So this is something we've been doing for the last few months. Basically it was around, new members and renewed members. And anybody who gets a new certification gets put into the mix. But then we also have particular things each month to add to the raffle participants. Last month, it was anybody who had gone to the PDD. Oh, no. Last month, it was anybody who was part of the, last month, it was PDD folks. In April, it was anybody who was part of the Facebook group. Promote that. And we actually have a winner, Sarah Green. I don't know if Sarah's on, but she's going to be getting a book as our raffle prize. Next month, we are going to include anybody who goes to the June volunteer event. So that's coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I think the last day to sign up for that is tomorrow or Friday. So if you want to be part of that and get in on the raffle and also just have a great time at the food bank, go ahead, sign up, and you'll get to do both of those. And in June, the criteria will be anybody who comes to the June event, which is our annual meeting, and the last event before we take our break in the summer. So congratulations to Sarah, and if you guys want to participate in those raffles, that's how you do it. And I think that's it for me.
All right. Thanks, Craig. All right. Not sure if Colleen has joined us up here. I see she's here, but I can just talk about this. The board, it's time to vote for the new board of directors members. And so here are our nominees. We just want to remind you that voting is open through the 31st of this month. So we do encourage you, if you haven't voted yet, please go out and vote. You should have received an email to vote, and so please follow those instructions and vote for the new board of directors members. All right, we will shift over to Karen.
All right. Hey guys, so this is my monthly plug for our Facebook group. It's been active, I guess, from the beginning of this year, late last year. But there's, again, just my monthly plug. It's a really great place if you're on Facebook to join us there in this group. We provide a lot of information. And then, I know everyone gets a lot of emails. We send out our weekly emails, but you'll also find that information out in the Facebook group as well. So if you happen to lose our emails, you can go out there. We have our knowledge drop information out there, information, about the voting, all of that stuff. So it's all out there. Just request to join. There are a couple of questions that you need to answer to the group. Real easy, but would love to see you all out there. And again, if you have any questions too about project management or about PMI WIC, feel free to post those out there as well. We get a lot of good questions and a lot of good feedback out there. So join us.
All right. Thanks, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And we do have some openings. We do need some help with our ComTech team. Cheryl, who is the current VP of Communications, she's not able to be here tonight, but we always need help here. And so here is a way that you can volunteer on the Communications and Technology team. There is an update happening, a technology update. We'll be migrating the website to a microsite that's hosted by the national PMI. And so we would love to have some assistance with these migrations. It looks like 2 migrations going on. We'll be migrating from the website to a microsite, and then we'll also be migrating from the G Suite to Microsoft 365. So if you have any experience in those things, we encourage you to share your experience and volunteer. And you can see the information below where you can shoot an email over to Cheryl to volunteer. So thanks in advance, anybody who has any experience with those things. All right, we do have some upcoming events. June 9th from 12 noon to 1 p.m. It is our Lunch and Learn. And the topic is Risky People, presented by Tiffany Feit. She is a change manager with St. Luke's Health Systems. And so we want you to make sure that you get signed up for that event. You can go out to our website to sign up. At our next monthly meeting in June 23rd, we will have Tim Cormier. He will be talking about the ProSci change management model. So that will be another great event. So encourage you to join us next month to hear from him. And then we do have our volunteer event coming up, and not sure if anybody on the line wants to share about that. I know Craig kind of gave a plug for volunteers, and if folks are volunteering, sounds like they get entered into the raffle, but not sure if anybody else wants to share anything about the upcoming volunteer event. Ben?
I can share. Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Ben. I'm the volunteer coordinator for PMI WIC. June 4th, we will be volunteering at the Idaho Food Bank from 3 to 5 p.m. And last time we volunteered, which was, gosh, 3 months ago, it doesn't seem that long because time passes so quickly. We were able, I believe, to stuff, gosh, I want to say like 400 out of 900 boxes. That's just a rough guess. It could be totally off. But what they did with those food boxes, and they're like, I don't know, a foot by a foot by a foot or so, they took those boxes to a mobile food pantry in the Payette area. I don't know what project they're going to have us working on, but there's nothing more project management-y than working on huge supply chain and food distribution issues that really help our community. You know, one of the things that was really awe-inspiring when we were being introduced is how many people rely on the food bank for support and help and assistance. It is you know, it's usually your neighbor or, you know, somebody that you wouldn't think would need it, but it actually does need help. So it definitely affects much more the community than I think anybody is aware. And it's just a really invaluable service. So I know they appreciate us being there, and we appreciate being able to go there. So if you haven't signed up, sign up. There's 2 parts. You need to sign up with PMI WIC, and you also need to sign up with the food bank. And that is, I can send you those links. And that's just so that they know who's coming, you know, pretty much. It's more of a security safety thing. So they requested that we do that. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to email me and I will hand it back to you, Tanisha.
All right. Thanks, Ben. That looks like Colleen is saying, thanks, Ben, for organizing all of our fun volunteer events. So big shout out there. And Michelle Marshall is encouraging everyone, come on out and volunteer and have a great time while doing it. So encourage you to be a part of these things that are coming up. This is our financial report out. And unfortunately, Becky wasn't able to be with us tonight. But not much has changed, as you can see, just because of the pandemic. We're pretty much holding steady. But you know, as we shift into, as we kind of come out of June, take our break July and August, and then come back in September, sure that we'll see some changes there as we start to be able to resume in-person activities and doing all kinds of fun stuff. So financials are pretty much holding steady, which is a good thing. All right. We're so excited tonight. Our event for tonight is entitled Lean Six Sigma and Effective Project Management, More to the Story. We have Yuqwan Holloway. She is the principal for Holloway Consultant Group. Yuquan was gracious enough to share with us in a lunch and learn about a month or so ago. And the questions that we got and all the feedback that we got was so overwhelming that we said, we need a part 2. We need more. And so Yuquan was gracious enough to join us again tonight to take us a little further in the discussion. So tonight we'll be talking about Lean Six Sigma. We want to note that it is a continuous improvement strategy that seeks to improve process performance by reducing waste and defects. Yuquan will be presenting a case study tonight where she'll be leveraging and demonstrating the tools for Lean Six Sigma that will drive effective solutions for our project managers. So we're really, really excited about that. And I will stop sharing so that Yuquan can get ready to share. And while she's doing that, allow me to formally introduce her to those who don't know her or haven't yet had an opportunity to experience, right, or to hear what she shared last time. So Yuqwan Holloway spent 18 years driving successful change in the information technology and supply chain arena for a Fortune 100 company, where she focused on driving a culture of standard work and repeatable processes, stabilizing and simplifying core applications, reducing critical incidents, and delivering technology projects. Today, Yuquan leads Holloway Consulting Group, which focuses on helping technology teams set goals, create plans, and solve complex problems. As well, Yuquan is a part-time instructor for Kanisiwa State University, where she teaches information systems management to business students. And last, because of her personal passion for education, she facilitates workshops, teaches project management and process improvement classes, and volunteers with youth groups. Yuquan, I don't know how you have time to do all of this stuff. You are a superwoman, and we're so glad to have you here with us tonight. So we welcome you.
Thank you for having me. That was definitely me BC, or that's what I like to call before COVID. And I don't know, my COVID lifestyle has been a little bit different. So it'll be interesting to see what parts, you know, especially on the teaching. And that's Kennesaw State, one of our University of Georgia system university schools that's huge now, that's really grown. It's probably number 3 after Georgia Tech and the University of Georgia. So thank you guys for having me again. I really enjoyed the last time and the questions, and it was a great time. As I talk tonight, if you have a question I may not see, so Tanisha, please feel free to interrupt me, because I like this being bi-directional. It's okay to interrupt me while I'm speaking if I don't see the question.
Absolutely. And for the folks who are on tonight, we will encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A. If you see that, it's across from the chat. I know a number of us are in the chat, so you can put your questions in the Q&A, and Yuquan, definitely, I will let you know as I see any feedback.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, don't save your questions till the end.
Yeah.
Share them.
And if you want to know what my friends call me, most of them call me Quan. My mother calls me Yuquan, so I do pay better attention, but I do respond mostly. I respond to Quan and things that rhyme with Quan, like John, Sean, all those good things. As Tanisha shared, I have a consulting practice based out of Atlanta, but I get the pleasure of working all over the place. I help technology teams solve problems and drive projects to a timely and high quality conclusion. And I'm very excited to be back with you again, talking more about Lean Six Sigma tools. And I definitely use them all the time. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit tonight about DMAIC, a little bit more about DMAIC and how I've been using that a lot lately, and give you some specific examples. I am a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt and a project management professional. I started working as a project manager about 21 years ago, and as a Lean Six Sigma practitioner about 16 years ago. It's very easy for me to remember both of those, because I have a 21-year-old and I have a 16-year-old, and I have certain events I was working on while both of them were being born. So over the years, I've started blending the concepts of the two to drive effective results. PMP definitely is, a certification, a wonderful, fun test, right, that you have to pass. And there's continuing education and events like this and things we have to do to maintain our licensure. Whereas the black belt, and saying that I'm a black belt, is not truly governed by an organized body. You'll find a number of universities and continuing education organizations will have their own programs and their own certification processes. And so it's not as, I think, highly governed. So I don't typically go around touting I'm master or I'm this or that, because those things were bestowed on me by Georgia Tech and the Coca-Cola Company in their own programs, not anything that's national like PMI has. But I use it a lot. So I enjoy what I learned from those institutions. I talked before about scoping and delivering impactful projects, leveraging Lean Six Sigma tools. I shared the basics of DMAIC and some of the tools used within the DMAIC framework. Today, I plan to share more specifically on the DMAIC methodology and how I use it to drive towards solutions. And I often, if you wonder, well, why do I leverage DMAIC, and when would you even consider using DMAIC as a vehicle versus a traditional waterfall project or agile or any other methodology? And so I'll talk to you a little bit about that, and then how I go about using it. And Tanisha, don't feel bad on giving me a time check either. I just took myself a note about exactly when in this meeting I started, because I do recognize it's your evening. It typically, most of the time, I think of DMAIC if someone is complaining or struggling with a project or a process that is not meeting a customer's needs. If I hear someone say it works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't, or the process just isn't scaling as we've gotten bigger, I automatically start to think of the DMAIC methodology and what it entails, because I know that it will at least give the team or the company or whatever the collection of people is a better understanding of how things are currently working in their organization. So a couple of other questions that I ask myself. I ask myself about defects. Is there, does this involve reducing a defect? Is there wasted time, wasted expense, right? So same things we think about with the triple constraint, quality, time, money, right? Could I put my hands on 3 to 6 months worth of data if I try real hard? I say try real hard because sometimes, as much as the world collects data, it's funny how hard it is for people to give you some good data. Oh, it's not clean data. That's fine. Give me your dirty data. Could the process owner make changes quickly? If it's a process that will require an act of Congress to change it, this might not be the best way. This is used to get in and make some changes that you can see the impact of in a short amount of time. As I was thinking about this today, I never really had an appreciation for those words that this would take an act of Congress. But for whatever reason, now when I say, wow, that's a long time, right? To take an act of Congress to change something. Is there a technology solution that needs to be implemented? I like to call those just do it's. Or I had a boss once that would call them Nike projects. Is the process or defect extremely rare in its occurrence? Like this only happens once every 5 years on a blue moon, then maybe this isn't the right, maybe DMAIC isn't the right way to go about it. And is the process currently undergoing other changes? Like there's about to be a lot of change, a huge reorg, depending on what type of change is going to happen and how much change will impact what you're working to fix, then DMAIC might not be a good thing either. So those are just some of the questions that I ask myself when I think about, is this the right methodology to take a look at for this effort? And if you think about process improvements, there's, I like to think of them in 3 ways: and correct, improve, and develop. Like sometimes it's just, this is a problem, I need to address it quickly. I know what's going wrong. We didn't do this, let's fix it. No reason to do a whole management by committee to fix it. You just need to give the feedback and fix it. An improvement is when the process has been working for some time, or almost working, but it's just not, it's progressively not meeting the customer or the business's needs. And then develop is we just need something totally new, a large scale change. And so DMAIC, or leveraging DMAIC via a Kaizen, typically works well for that second one that you see there for improve. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about DMAIC. You're going to see me leverage this slide a lot, only because I am just trying to share how I structure DMAIC in a quick manner versus a 3 to 6 month project. So as a methodology, I'll take this DMAIC, which is a mnemonic, as you can see, for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And I'll create a Kaizen event. And Kaizen is just the Japanese word for improvement. I love Kaizens. It's a way to get a team focused for about 2 days and then to release them back into the wild, right? So many times lately, not lately, for the past, 8-9 years, busy has been the new normal. People are very, very busy. They're doing way more work than they used to do. And they have a hard time staying focused on an initiative over a long period of time, because it's rare that you have people that are solely dedicated to a project. Often they have 2 or 3 projects in their regular day job. And I spent a lot of years at Coca-Cola, and I was focused on the IT organization, and I used to call it keeping up. They're keeping SAP running, because every time I went to meet with them, they're heads down, they're typing away. They're looking at their BlackBerry, if I date myself. They're doing all these things at one time, and I could not get their attention or a 3 to 6 month time period to focus on a problem or a project, but I could get their attention if I were to have them for 2 days or 3 days. And so the DMAIC workshop or Kaizen event became my de facto to how I would go about in getting change and getting people to take specific actions in a short time frame. I got a new client this month or this year, and I started working with them in January. I did a Kaizen event for them in February. They loved it so much. On one issue that they were struggling with, we did another one at the top of May, and then we did another one last week. So it's become their way to, with so much going on in their organization, to focus in. So you can see here, right before this, it might be a little small. It says prior to the Kaizen, me or my team, we focus on define and measure before the event. So we're talking to people, and you'll see all the, I'll give you more specifics on what we're doing. And then we come together for a 2-day event where people have focused attention, and we focus on analyze, and we focus on improve. And we actually have time. I build time into the schedule for us to actually take the actions that we decide to take while we're there. And then we walk out with a couple of things still to do, because it's often impossible to do everything you want to do in that amount of time, with another 30-day check-in to make sure we've wrapped up all of the activities and that we see an appreciable difference in the metrics. And so it's just been a really good tool to make and see change. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the various phases that you see here and the tools that I use in these phases so that you get a little bit better of a flavor. For define, is the purpose of define is just making sure you understand the purpose and the scope. The last time we looked at this from a high level, but when you take a look at this from, I think it's a lot richer when you see what's the exact purpose and what are the specific deliverables. I find define to be the most important, just like we would say initiate is so key, right? In scoping the work, because you need to let the data and the processes and people tell you the problem versus just some great manager who has awesome intentions telling you this is my problem. Often when you go and dig and work through these deliverables, you find that there are some other things at play. I leverage these specific deliverables every time I do a DMAIC for the last 16 years. I mean, so I'll have this slide for each phase, and I might not do every last deliverable because it's not required for everything, but it's a great jogger for me to say, let me take these steps. And even at the start, I'm always a tad anxious. And is this going to work for this problem? And if I just work the deliverables and make sure I'm capturing the right information, it always works out. I mean, it may not work out exactly how I think it is, but it's going to work out exactly like it should. I use a Six Sigma memory jogger. I show the name of it at the end of this presentation, but that was, 16 years ago when I bought that book. It's been around since '94. Their Microsoft Project and Smartsheet and probably any other tool that you use now has the DMAIC, these deliverables built right in if you ask for the DMAIC template. So it's something to consider, even if you're not going to do the entire initiative that way. It just helps keep you grounded. The charter, just like any charter, is an evolving document, right? And so this is definitely the first step that I take. And PMI, my favorite word that I remember from my first reading of the PMBOK is progressive elaboration. I live my life by progressive elaboration. And this is exactly what it is, right? You take your best guess at this charter based on what you heard, and you're trying to make sure you got a clear picture of what's going on and who's doing what. But as you learn more, this charter gets smarter and smarter. I had a coworker, I'm in Atlanta and Georgia, the South is what we're in the South. And I used to have a coworker that would say, we got to get smartened up. And this is definitely how the path of starting to get smarter on a topic. My second favorite tool, and I talked about this the last time, this is like a paper clip for me if I were MacGyver, because he could disassemble a bomb with a paper clip. But this SIPOC is my tool to truly get a grasp on the boundaries of the project or the process that I'm looking at. And again, it's another mnemonic for supplier, input, process, output, customer. It helps you get a pretty good overview. It's the first thing that I start to sketch out about an organization because it's going to help me get very clear on my stakeholders. And down the line, when we're talking ProSci and change management, or early on when I'm talking voice of customer like I'll do next, I want to know who these stakeholders are. They're my suppliers and they're my customers. If I do anything different about this process, they're going to feel it. They're either going to have to give different information or they're going to get different outputs. And so I need to hold them close throughout this effort. At my workshop, I really try hard to make sure there is a representative from each of these. Even if it's individual customers and we don't want to bring the customer into the mix because we don't want them to know that we know it's a problem, I'm looking for survey data. I'm looking for complaints those customers have made. I'm trying to bring their voice to life. So even though they're not physically at the meeting, their complaints and their issues are there. And then on the supplier side, even if I have my last workshop that I did 2 workshops ago, they had a vendor that was providing a lot of their service. I had an update call with the vendor prior to the workshop. I got as much information as I could from that vendor, and they promised that they'd be available by phone, for we could phone a friend if at any time during that workshop we needed to pull more in other than the textual data that we had. So my SIPOC tool is, like I said, it's a really important first step for me in trying to bound and understand what I'm dealing with, because it's going to drive so many other things. And again, we're in the define phase, and I'm talking about the things that I'm doing in the define phase because I need to get as much as I can out of define and measure to take it into the workshop. Voice of customer is very key. I find that the best learnings I have, and I was joking with a friend of mine at Coke the other day, and she's a vice president now, and she said, remember when we were kids and we used to complain about them hiring consultants to tell us what we already knew? And I was like, yep, I remember that. And she's like, I'm that person now. I'm hiring consultants to tell us what we already know because we can't organize ourselves in the fashion in order to, or we're not focused sometimes in the best way to get it from our people and tell it back to our senior leaders in the way that they're going to action on it quickly. And so voice of customer is very, very big. It's having one-on-one conversations, of course, with the people that do the work, the people that receive the work, those people that were in that S and the C, the suppliers and the customers, having conversations with them. If I was working with an internal FMLA process a couple of weeks ago, I was like, hey, can you send this survey to the people that took FMLA in the last 6 months? I don't need to see their names. This can be completely anonymous, but I want to know what it felt like on that side to get FMLA, and did they feel supported? Did they have what they needed? And so it's just getting that voice of the customer as cleanly as possible so that you can work with it. So the first big component I've spoke of here and coming into getting prepared for my DMAIC workshop is being very clear on define and understanding what the current state really looks like. It's not odd, but there's not typically one person that has a complete view of the current state of something anymore. And it's because I think our work is so distributed. I often work with teams where, there's a team in the Philippines doing this piece. There's a team in Atlanta doing this piece. There's somebody in Washington State and California doing this piece. And those people may talk and they work together well, but they can't clearly see across all of their functions often. And it takes sitting down and doing an old school data capture to do that. That old school data capture often looks like the things that I have here is process maps, which, everybody doesn't think that's so fun, but I've gotten aware it's typically a very revealing place to get a process map, because like I said, people often don't know what everybody's doing, or they don't know how much they might be swirling the customer around across all of the different functions of the organization. I collect baseline data on the specific defect that we're working to improve or better understand. Sometimes I'm doing some statisticky stuff, but more often than not, if it's a internal service, it's just measuring the process, understanding what a defect looks like, capturing the defects, and trying to quantify what exactly this problem or process issue is doing to the finances. And that often gets people's attention when you can clearly state, oh, we lose this many sales because of this, or customers wait. I was looking at something the other day, and the longest customer has waited 60 days to have their invoice processed. I'm like, ooh, not customer, vendor. At some point, vendors are going to stop delivering service, right? If we are not able to get past that problem. So just putting the information out clearly is what define and measure is all about. And that's via process maps, like I said, and also data. I've listed here a YouTube video that I love. And whenever I pull together a team and we're going to do process mapping, I typically start with this video by Tom Wuchek. I don't ever know if I'm saying this man's name correct. I should call him up and meet him one day. He does a TED Talk and he calls it How to Make Toast. And he gives the most simple and kind of beautiful view of what it would take if you were to make a process map of how to make toast. And he shows all these various teams that he interviewed over a time period and how people grafted. And he uses that to come up with some standard things about process mapping. And it's really gotten me to a place where I think the more simple the process map, the better. No need to make it look, back in the day, we'd have a million things on a slide, but what's the level at which we can action? And a good process map like this, that's a swim lane, I'm partial to, because it tells you a lot about where the customer is having to go. Like, he comes in, he goes to sales, he comes back, he goes to order processing. Sometimes you'll see us, if you look at our process map, we're just back and forth to different departments when we could probably just, stay in one space for a while and collect the information and then go to the next place. Another good thing about drawing your process maps this way is if you really want to know what it feels like and you want to measure this process, whenever you go from one swim lane to another, you typically are introducing weight, right? Because you got to wait till the sales guy picks up his cue. You got to wait till he gets back. Salespeople roam around all the time. All these various things when you're going from one system to another, one function, one job role to another. Sometimes the work is very quick, but how long did they have to wait for the work to get done? So I often use this via swim lane maps. You'll see some people using value stream maps to do this kind of thing.
It looks like you've got a couple comments in here. Colleen is saying, so right, the left hand often doesn't know what the right hand is doing. She's a big fan of the swim lane. She's saying, I love me some swim lanes.
Yeah. I fought it for years. I fought it, but.
And then looks like they have put the video in the YouTube, a link to awesome. It, so that everyone can grab that after the presentation at the end and have that available.
All right. You guys, I love that video. And it's funny, I've shown it so many times and I sit there and watch it it's like a little kid watching a Disney episode of something that they've seen for the 50,000th time. You're like, are you really going to watch that again? That's how I feel when I watch that video. All right. And then the other thing is data. So I talked a little bit about data, and this picture always, I don't know what I'm going to call this little monster. I call him I guess we'll call him a sea dragon. But you got the man flying over and he's like, oh, what's this? Look, a big sea dragon. But when you really pull back the curtains and look at the data, it's not one big thing. It's three different things. I can't tell you how many times I've measured a data set and you're like, this is kind of operating weird. It's like there's three different curves. Am I splicing my data up right in order to truly get a good picture? My friend Zaffer that I used to teach with years ago, he would always say, torture the data until it tells you something. I'll never forget that because it's, it's a graphic visualization. But yeah, what is the data really trying to tell you? And it really helps you separate what you think is happening from what's really happening. And it's surprising on those things that are, you don't think about them from a data perspective, because they're just like the example I was saying, did people take FMLA? Yes or no? Well, that kind of, how many people are out? Well, how many people are out and they're unapproved to be out? Oh my gosh, is that how many people are out unapproved? Is that a way for us to measure how well we're doing with our process? And we start putting some numbers behind it, something that is anecdotal and a problem gets a lot more teeth to it. When you say, oh my gosh, our compliance is 15% or 20%. It helps you see a history. It helps you establish a baseline, because maybe I've had this before where I've been told there's a problem and this is the problem, and you go to measure it and it's not a problem. It's doing just fine. It's performing at the industry standard, but there's something else that's going on, and we need to get better. We need to get more clear about our issue. So and I'm not the person that loves to jump to Excel, but I've learned to really value it in trying to get very clear on what's going on in a process so that I can better provide better clarity. But as well, when we fix it, you want to be able to say and prove that you fixed it. And if you don't measure yourself ahead of that, then you won't be able to. So there's plenty of different charts that we do, like run charts for data over time. A histogram is great for dispersion and capability of a process. And I wanted to just highlight here the Pareto because it helps you focus in on your priorities. If you're looking at a large data set, it's often easy to get caught up in all the different problems and issues that you have. However, I love Pareto's principle. I think it's like the early 1800s in Italy, where he realized that 80% of the wealth was held by 20% of the people. And a quality guy years later said, hey, let's focus on the vital few versus the trivial many. I'm trying to run my life like this. What are the top 3 things I need to do today and forget everything else, right? But it really helps you to prioritize, because often we're focused on trying to fix everything. If I'm dealing with discrete data, like this example here, customer complaints, I got this wrong item, wrong quantity, late delivery, damage, wrong billing. Let's just focus in on wrong item. And if we focused in on wrong item and finding out the root cause of wrong item and fixing the root cause of wrong item and wrong quantity, then we fixed 80% of our problems, and we definitely freed up a lot of time for ourselves and made our customers happier. So that's what this is all about. It's just getting very focused and clear. And so I've talked so far about define and measure. And these two, I like to say, spy on your process, right? Torture your data until it tells you something. I want to walk into my 2-day workshop, because 2 days goes by like the blink of an eye. I want to go into that workshop with as much information as possible to share and orient the team. And the team will have given me some of these data points, but no one person will have given me all of the data points. This person gave me her opinion, and 5 other people gave me their opinions, and the administrator gave me the system data, and Jack gave me some process maps, and I refined them. And you see, wow, this is our customer complaint data, this is our supplier complaint, all of these things. Then it really puts you in a position where you can get active quickly and start to make some change. So for example, my agenda might look something like this. 8 a.m. I know that's an early start time, but it usually takes people 30 minutes to drag in. Okay, so 8 a.m. to 11, or the first component of the day, we're reviewing everything that was collected. So we're taking a good clear look at all of the data that that speaks to the process or the problem that we're working to solve. And then the goal of doing that is, one, to get everybody on the same page, but also that we can come to an agreement together on a clearly articulated, focused problem statement. And I'll speak a little bit more about the value of having a clear problem statement. After that, we're able to just begin to talk about the root cause of that specific problem. And if we can get to the root cause of the problem and determine what it is, then we can start to create an action plan that addresses the root cause. You can see here on the second day, we're just focused on putting improvements in place. And we might be broken up into small teams. We might be having meetings. We might be doing design. It all depends on what the action plan is. But this is just an agenda of, well, what do you do when you really come together for that 2 days? So analyze is when we come together, and I just shared that we've spent the first couple of hours of the day admiring our problems. Then the whole purpose of analyze, if this were a 3 to 6 month project instead of a 2-day workshop, I'd spend about a month and analyze, and my whole point would be to identify my root causes. What is causing this? I shared last time, and this show has definitely been off the air for some years now. So if you didn't watch it, sorry, but about probably 12, 15 years ago, my favorite TV show was House. And he was a doctor that had a lot of his own personal problems, but he would literally tear down the person in order to figure out what the root cause was of the problems that they were presenting. The Good Doctor kind of does the same thing. There's another show, but it's really, he didn't care about the symptoms. I mean, the symptoms were like a puzzle, some puzzle pieces, awesome, like the underwater dragon there, awesome puzzle pieces. But he truly needed to know the root cause, because he didn't want to just address the symptoms. He wanted to apply a solution to fix your root cause. And so that's what we're seeking to do in the analyze phase, is really understand the root causes. And if there are a lot of them, then we're seeking to prioritize them and determine which ones are the most critical in order to do something.
Right. You've got a couple questions.
All right.
So Colleen says, when quantitative data doesn't exist, do you rely on qualitative data, or is it better to spend the time to collect your own quantitative data?
You know, I've had a couple of situations where the quantitative data is so important that we've paused the effort and just made our project be about putting together a data collection system. And that's if there's truly nothing that exists. Oftentimes, because everything is so digitized now, there's data that exists, but we just struggle to get at it because we paid for some cloud solution or something where they're holding our stuff hostage. But then in other times, then I might try more of a qualitative type of a survey. Or if there's a team of people all doing the same thing, then I might ask them, hey, can you take the next 2 weeks, and as you do your work, capture your steps or capture these timestamps. I don't like to have to do that because, you're going to have some error in there, and then people are worried, so they make up some stuff sometimes to make themselves look better than they are. But I feel that usually when I sit and really think on it, or we talk to different people and make sure there's an IT person on the team, there's usually something we can do to get some type of quantitative data. But I understand sometimes, and some things are just don't throw off quantitative data. And so in those situations, what's the SIPOC? What's the processes, and what type of data exists for those processes? We just need that to do a survey. Story, I had a woman I was coaching through a project for this company that they pay for training and then coaching, and she is a healthcare firm, and they hire a lot of people during the HEDIS season. And HEDIS season, if you're not sure, if you don't know of it, and I probably am going to say it a little wrong because I'd never heard of it, it's a season where you kind of go back and you audit all these doctors' charts and different things. And they would have to hire hundreds of people, but they would lose people. They would lose people in the process, and they would hire people, and then they would drop off in 15, 30 days. And so she's like, we just don't have any quantitative data about it. And so I was like, it'd be great if we could ask people. And so we came up with this survey, and she ran it by HR, and they were like, no, you can't call these people and ask them these questions. So she's like, okay. So she went off for her month. And when she came back, I'd given her some suggestions. Like, how did it go? She's like, I have great data. I said, what did you do? She said, I called all the people that HR told me not to call. I'm like, are you crazy? But she had the best data. So that's a bit of a renegade story. But yes, Colleen, I hear you. Sometimes you have to make a decision, and sometimes it's worth it to create a project to just get your data together so that you can, put things together in the future. Oh, I like that, Michelle. Torture the data, tease out the truth.
All right, cool. I think you're seeing all the chat now, so
Yeah.
I think you're up to
Show me
date.
your D4. That's cute. Love the G8 process. Okay. So yeah, so one of the big things I like to do together with the team, and when we come together in a workshop, is to make sure our problem statement is very focused. There's a problem statement overview in that charter. And as a person doing a charter, you can get it pretty good. You can write something that's well, but after you've sat and looked at all that data, and you have people that come together, and then people are going to talk a bit, and somebody's going to add something that you've never heard before, and somebody's going to say, oh, well, that was because 20 years ago when Bob was here, he didn't like that, so this is what we do. And so once we've all talked and looked and reviewed the data, then I really work to focus it on, what's the problem, who, what, when, where, and which, what's the nature of the problem, where does the problem occur, when does the problem occur, who is involved. I had a problem we were seeing at Coke, and it just didn't seem like, it seemed like the problem, it was in the Vertex tax solution. And if the tax solution didn't run, it would shut down everything because you don't want to be wrong about taxes. And it's like that. The dates that this is happening, as we were trying to write the problem statement, it's like, well, when exactly does the problem occur? Because we talked about the problem, and someone pulled open their computer and it was like, well, it happened on the 26th. It happened on this date of this month and this date of this month. I was like, that's it. That feels almost lunar to me as a woman, right? This is weird. And somebody said, oh my God, that's the second day of the financial close. Like, the second day of financial close. Such a great revelation, because then we could really figure out what the root cause of the problem was when we could pinpoint it that well. And I think even in our personal lives, when we can get more clear about the problem, like I'm really trying to get clear on why I don't want to drink water. I'm gonna nail this in the next year or two. When you can get very clear about the problem, then you can truly start to get at the root cause of the problem. And so I'm always focused on what's the root cause. That Kaizen workshop is quick as we can get to what are the root causes of the problem. I can see the letters are so faint, you can barely see it. As quick as we can get there, as quick as we can start to build out some specific actions. And so a couple of tools that I use at getting to the root cause. Sometimes it's simple and easy to see once you've articulated the problem clearly, like the Vertex tax calculation that had been breaking down for a whole full year. We couldn't figure out where and when it was coming from, right? After we were able to clearly articulate the problem, we knew exactly what was driving it, because it felt random, because financial close isn't always the same time, but it wasn't random. But the 5 whys is a tool that I like to use. It's very simple. And then an Ishikawa or a fishbone diagram is also. There's a great video on the Jefferson Memorial, I believe. Sometimes some videos have it listed as a Lincoln, but it talks about how bats were there were a lot of bat droppings often on the memorial. And so they were having to pressure wash it. And because they were pressure washing it, they were eroding the monument. And so they were thinking, well, do we just need to cover the monument or something crazy? But as they started asking the 5 whys, why are the bats coming? Well, the bats are coming because the insects are coming. Well, why are the insects coming? Because there's light that we turn the lights on when to illuminate the monument when the sun goes down. And so it's like, what they learned is if I could trim those lights coming on by 30 minutes or 45 minutes, those insects will find somewhere else to go have a good time. And then the bats won't come, and we can reduce the amount of wear and tear on cleaning the monument. So 5 whys. And then Ishikawa, which is a fishbone. Fishbone is literally, I'm missing free throws. Well, why am I missing free throws? Well, I'm telling you, because I can't shoot. So people, you got several categories you can always look at: people, material, the method, the environment, the machine. And then this is an exercise of trying to understand, well, what specifically could be the cause of the missed free throws for each of these. And then you go back and say, well, what's very likely? I use this tool very often to paint a picture of the root cause of something, as well as the 5 whys. I had a workshop that I did once. We were experiencing a lot of change errors, a change from an IT change perspective, where people were submitting emergency changes, and emergency changes often led to system instability. And for whatever reason, people weren't submitting standard changes. And so we took the last 30 emergency changes and broke into groups and did 5 whys on each of them. And really, people were just circumventing the process as best they could because they had waited too long, or, all those different things. But good one.
You got a couple comments out here. Michelle says, the 5 whys demonstrate the power and value of leading with curiosity rather than conclusion.
That's like that. Hey, Michelle, you should be a writer. Leading with curiosity. Let me make sure I get your last name, because I'm going to quote you. Okay, Michelle Marshall. The next time I teach it, I'll probably say that. It's about leading with curiosity, as Michelle Marshall would say. All right. Pareto, I see opportunities to use that soon. Yeah. And let me tell you, on the Pareto chart, you used to have to try and figure it out how to do one. And now in Excel, when you highlight your data and you go to insert a chart, they are smart enough where they recommend different things to you now. And if it's the type of data, discrete data that would fit into a Pareto, it's going to recommend a Pareto chart or an ordered histogram. So you should be able to find it. Oh, thank you, Jen, on the memorial. You should be able to find it simply, but if you can't, just Google Pareto and you'll find, I love to do it because we're often trying to do so many things when really we would suffice to just focus our time and attention on one. All right. All right. And so quickly, this is just a quick primer on the 8 wastes. And if you know the 8 wastes, it's another tool. And a couple friends of mine and we did a webinar series on the 8 wastes, where we talked about each waste and how it presents and different things of that sort. But this might be the root cause of some of your issue. The waste of waiting, over processing, overproduction, skills not utilized, that type of thing. If Blockbuster would have only tried to eliminate the waste of transportation, they might have beat Netflix to the point, but whatever. They charged me so many fees in the day that I don't feel that sad about them. All right. So this is, this last bit, I've just been sharing different ways of getting at the root cause of the problem that you'll identify as you come out of analyze. And then the big thing is, how do I create solutions to address those root causes? I was doing a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and we were trying to understand why they don't enforce the rules they have in their company around FMLA. And one of the women in the room said, because we're scared to get sued. Honestly, we are scared of our associates and we don't want to get sued about anything. And I thought, wow, okay. What's a solution to address that? And they were very nervous because their HR policies weren't very clear, and they've been deposed about their policies various times and been called on the fact that it's different written different in different places. So a very important action was to make sure that there was only one source of the truth when it came to policies, and that managers knew exactly how to enforce those policies. And so that's what Improve is about. It's about designing solutions specifically for the root causes that you came up with. And I think for years, I would have my manager or somebody would come to my desk and they would describe, back when you had an office, they would describe, here's the problem and blah, 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 and this is what we need to do. And my project would become doing what exactly they said we needed to do, only to find halfway through my initiative that I was putting in some solutions to some problems that didn't exist or some totally wrong problems. And so I'm pretty passionate about making sure that solutions specifically address the root cause. And, on the slide prior to this one, it had things like you can pilot, you can do things in a small way. You don't have to do everything at the same time. How do I make sure that my solutions address the root cause? And when I have the team together, sometimes the problem is so plain and the root cause is so simple and so plain, you know exactly what you need to address it. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have to be creative or map out how it could happen in the future. I love using benchmarking as a tool. There's too many people that are already doing the same things to not benchmark. If Coca-Cola is delivering beverages or delivering equipment to fix machines, and Sears is delivering equipment to fix refrigerators and washing machines and dryers, how different are they really? And is there something that you can learn from them? And I often will leverage benchmarking as a way, if there's a best-in-class solution, to go ahead and try that. So just a couple of possible paths for generating solutions. And last time I was with you, I talked a little bit about FMEA as a tool, a Lean Six Sigma tool. I'll think about using this and Improve if it's a solution that has a lot of opportunities to fail, or it's a very, it's just an interesting place with a lot of different things that can happen, right? And so it's like, okay, when we put this solution in, let's make sure that we are very careful on if there's a failure, how do we mitigate the severity of it? How do we make sure that what we're doing is detectable? I'm sure they think this way when they're putting in solutions around systems. Like I live not too far from Colonial Pipeline. And a couple of weeks ago, I didn't have gas. I was like, darn it, toilet paper, now gas. Because of the cybersecurity issue that they had. I would imagine if I were to call my friend Jill, who's not taking calls right now, probably because she had a rough couple of weeks. She's a project manager there. Hey, did y'all do an FMEA on all the different ways y'all could be in pain again, and determine how could things be better detected, and how could the frequency of something like this be decreased? So that's kind of when you're building solutions and improvements with failure in mind, or risk in mind, let's say it that way. So that's just FMEA. But overall, inside of that workshop, when I'm doing improvements, I am trying to get the team to complete as many actions as possible in that workshop. And I'm trying to make sure that there's time for it. And so as quickly as we can get to root cause, and as quickly as we can come up with our action plan, the more time for the team to break into teams and do what they need to do in order to put these actions in place. If you're on a plant floor, you're actually meeting with the plant floor and talking to them and saying, okay, we want to move this line from here to there. We just want to pick it up, take it. How do we do it? And so that's the nature of being in an in-person workshop, which I'm excited about, being able to be in person again because of that. And then after all the great work we do, I realize typically we're not going to be able to get it all done right at that time. But when it is complete, we need to make sure that the change is sticky. And that's what the control phase is about. And, in change management with project planning, we're working that change management from the very first day of the project all the way to the end. the same you should think about, I think, with the control phase. We're documenting the processes and making sure that whatever needs to be visual is visual. I often encourage people to put some visual work into it in processes that already exist. If you made some changes to a process and there's already a quarterly meeting where metrics are reported, make sure that this metric is reported at that quarterly meeting. If you're managing by exception and there's 5 people that keep going against the process, and it's easy enough to show that these are the 5, make that visual, right? So that we don't lose sight of the great work that we did and the next person has to come in and do it again. A couple of ideas on that is, making sure that there are controls in place, making sure there's standardized work at the places where it should be. Departure from the standard should be visible. People in the process need to know when it's performing well and what is not. A lot of things now, because we live in such a digital world and things aren't as visual to us anymore, we don't know where problems are piling up because we can't see it. So how do we give ourselves the opportunity to see things again? So those are just some ideas on that. But all in all, after my fun 2 days in a workshop, when we walk out, we are walking out with completed actions that address the root cause of the problem statement. We're walking out with a list of some other actions that still need to be completed and a scheduled time to check in, typically 30 days out, with the people that attended and senior leadership to report out on the other activities that we still needed to complete. We're walking out with a new way to measure, even if it's just one little metric that we're going to start paying attention to. We know what it was before we started, and we know where it is, and we know when we're going to how often we're going to measure it and where we're going to display it and share it, and any new routines that are important as well. So that's me doing DMAIC in 2 days, which isn't really 2 days because I got the pre-work, which is usually 2 to 3 weeks, and then a couple of touch points afterwards. But getting someone's focused attention nowadays is the best way for me to help people get work done on things that are nagging them, and getting their attention. I put Michael Broussard's book up here. My copy is 16 years in. I might have replaced it once, so I can't imagine, but it's tattered. So I had to go look. This was made in 1994. There's a couple of, I'm sure, more recent ones. I only love it because, like I said, whenever I am leveraging this methodology, I literally start from the beginning and take it through step by step. Not because I think I've forgotten anything. It just gives me some comfort in working the process. And it also helps enforce to do that. I mean, there's none of those steps that will be wasted if I do it. I'm going to learn something. But yeah, there are plenty of others like that. And like I said, these steps are now built into most of our project management tools because it's here to stay, I believe. Yeah. Any questions? Oh, yeah. Okay, Jen, she posted the Jefferson Memorial.
Yeah, this was so informative. Thank you so much, Yuquan. We'll give people a couple minutes. Let me just see if there's
a question and Q&A. And thank you guys for having me again. And I'm very active on LinkedIn. And if you ever have a question or anything, I really love this stuff. And so I like to talk about trying things on different tools. I was talking with a client today, and he needs to set up some standardization for he has data visualization, and he's not making the progress he needs. I'm like, you know what? You sound like you know all the components. He's like, yeah, it's just 40 hours worth of work. I'm like, let's just do it. Let's just create a workshop and do it. All right. How long did it take you to get your black belt? Well, I did a program at Georgia Tech when I got hired into the group of people that were doing Lean Six Sigma at Coca-Cola. And it was a 5-day class for Greenbelt. I believe this to be true. And then we had to deliver a Greenbelt project. And then I came back probably in a month or two, and I did probably a 10-day class for Black Belt. Most universities have them. There are a lot of continuing ed programs with them. And everybody's saying the same thing. I mean, everything I share today is online in some form or fashion. And I really see this as more of an art than a science. However, I'd say the fatal flaw in a lot of these programs is that you read and you go to the classes and you learn, but then you don't put it to use. And so as much as you can, as you get it, apply it quickly, the better off you'll be. I'll see that as people stumbling blocks when they interview or want to talk about, I have this certification, and you ask them one question and they fold because they haven't used it. I've seen people go to nonprofits like this food bank that you guys are volunteering for and use it there. And I'm gonna find a great video for you, Benjamin. As you were talking, I was thinking, darn it, I'm trying to get better about saving videos. But there's a Toyota production system. Jen's gonna find that, watch, because she's good. There's a Toyota production system video where after Hurricane, maybe Andrew, they went and volunteered with these people that were giving out food. And I mean, they changed their world in like 2 or 3 days because they just weren't set up for success. But taking your learnings and going and leveraging it somewhere like that will really get you in the habit of practicing if you don't have the opportunity to practice it in your day-to-day job. Let's see. All right. All right, Michelle, I'm going to be quoting you, so thank you for coming. I need to write it down, actually. 5 whys help you lead with curiosity versus conclusion. All right.
All right. Well, this was great. Thank you again, Yuquan, for joining us twice. We really
Ever in Western Idaho, I'm going to come visit you guys in person.
Yes, that will be amazing. By the time the world opens back up, we'll all be getting together again, and so that would be awesome. Just want to remind everyone who is on the call that this session, you are eligible for credits. And so make sure that you file, I believe it's 1 PDU in any category. So in any of the categories of the triangle. So make sure that you do that. And then look for an email with the slide deck that Yuquan shared with us, as well as some of this other information coming out shortly by next week. And so thank you all so much for joining. Yuquan, big thanks for you joining us. And I know it's super late your time, so thank you.
Oh, yeah. It's time for me and my husband's couch sitting. Jen shared what might be the link for the people that helped out in Hurricane Andrew, the Toyota production system people. I hope it's that link because I'm going to save it where it is. But all righty.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Have a great rest of your evening.
You guys too. Oops, didn't mean to open that. Talk to you later.
Okay, bye.